Well, warm welcome to my latest trip report, and today we're covering Eurowings. I've got a couple of flights which I've kind of mashed together to give you an overall trip report of various flights. The first from Dusseldorf to Hamburg, and then from Hamburg to London Heathrow. Do please subscribe if you like what you see, and thanks to those who already do. It might just be me, or it might just be that it's really early in the morning, but I think all German airports look just the same. This is Dusseldorf. We're here to catch our flight from Dusseldorf over to Hamburg, and thankfully the airport's pretty calm. Security was a breeze, not least because Dusseldorf has had installed the new scanners, so no messing about and taking lots of things out of bags really makes such a difference in terms of speeding through the airport. So for Hop 1 we're on this Airbus A320, which is 7 years old, a current engine option. At 6'4", I decided to opt for an extra legroom seat, and I have to say the flight was actually fairly empty, which is a blessing because I got the whole row to myself. Doesn't happen very often, does it? Anyways, here's the interior of the cabin, and yes, air vents that we can control ourselves. Hurrah! Now, as the flight wasn't very busy, the boarding process was actually really smooth and efficient. I'll come back to the boarding process for Eurowings a little bit later in the video. In the meantime, check out this Boeing 757-300 of Concorde. Lots and lots of debate about whether this livery is good or bad. I happen to really like it. Perhaps let me know what you think in the comments. A nice quick taxi and an on-time departure as we use runway 5 to get aloft this morning. I'll quieten down for the takeoff as always. As we lift, you'll see an Airbus A380 of Emirates in the background parked up. Emirates do make daily services to Dusseldorf. We were soon headed into the cruise for what would actually be about a 40-minute flight between Dusseldorf and Hamburg. Really quick.
You can plan the complete range of fresh sandwiches, savory snacks, as well as hot and ice drinks at the Wings Mr. Card located in the seat pocket in front of you.
Following an impressively quick service where you could buy coffee, tea, that sort of thing, we were already on our final approach into Hamburg. Just look at the wings and the contrails coming off the top of them. Fair play to the pilot because this was an absolutely superb landing. Hardly felt a thing as we touched down, so very well played indeed. connecting in Hamburg because it was actually cheaper for me to go that route than to fly directly back to London from Dusseldorf. I've never quite worked that out, whereby you're taking more planes and yet it's cheaper anyways. It was a really quick and efficient flight. We were on time. Happy days. Here we are as we just pull off the runway and head to our remote stand at Hamburg. It was a retro exit from the plane, but that gave me the opportunity to get a nice pic as we walked away from it. So on reaching Hamburg, I was desperately in need for some coffee, so I headed to the Lufthansa lounge. I've recently status matched on a trial basis with the Star Alliance, and this gave me access to the lounge, which was great. It's a really nice, light and airy business lounge with lots of facilities and a brilliant view of the airfield. There's lots of places to sit, and I felt it was really nice and contemporary. I had a fairly long layover at Hamburg, so I was glad to have access to a lounge. I'd encourage anyone with airline status to go to something like statusmatcher.com, where sometimes you'll find that some of the airlines out there will match your current status with an airline to their status. That can mean, for example, in my case, I was able to match my One World status to Star Alliance status, granted for a short period, but was able to do that anyway. I'd certainly recommend it. It's brilliant to have access to a lounge for free before and after flights. Here I am making my way now through the airport and down to the gate at Hamburg. The boarding process wasn't the best. It was really confused, as Eurowings choose to check whether you've got the right number of bags before they actually start normal boarding. This just meant that there was lots of people milling about, not quite knowing what to do. They'd been called up to the desk by name and then were sent away again. It was just really confusing, and I'm not quite sure it's the most effective way to get us all on board. Anyways, we eventually heard that Group 1 were getting to board. Lots of people thought they were in Group 1 but weren't. Long story short, it was just chaotic, but we did eventually board. Once we were done with the boarding melee, we were eventually able to start boarding the aircraft. Here's our jet for our flight back to Heathrow, this 2-year-old Airbus A320neo. We boarded via a jet bridge today, which makes a big difference. The last time I flew from Hamburg to Heathrow, they put us on a bus which we sat on for 40 minutes and we left about an hour late. Anyways, today all good, we're on board and on time, so nicely done. So it was a busy flight, and here's my seat for the day. I booked an extra legroom seat, which was about €13, I think. I'm glad I did, because actually isn't still that much legroom, so it makes me wonder what on earth normal legroom is like a bit further down the back. There's not much to speak of really in terms of the seat. There isn't any power, it's got a tray table, and the seat was actually pretty comfortable. So all in all, pretty good for a short flight. The little tray at the top is a brilliant anchor point for an iPad, which is what I was doing here. Any guesses on what the film was? Anyway, maybe make a comment if you know what I was watching. Soon it was time for the off, and we were getting ready to push back.
Weitere Informationen finden Sie auf der Sicherheitskarte. Vor Ihnen schauen Sie sich diese vor dem Start aufmerksam an und bringen Sie sich insbesondere die Lage der Notausgänge ein. Diese sind dort gekennzeichnet und Flugwege auf Ihrem Nahboden sind zu diesen Ausgängen. Bitte beachten Sie, dass sich der nächstgelegene Ausgang auf dieser E-Mail finden kann. Additional information can be found on the safety card in front of you. Please be careful to get these instructions prior to takeoff and take a particular note of the location of the emergency exit.
Similarly, for our flight from Dusseldorf to Hamburg, the taxi to the runway took no time at all. Maybe we were just lucky on both occasions. Anyway, here we are making our way over to runway 33 at Hamburg. It was a lovely day for flying, and of course I've sped this bit up just to save some time on the video, but I'll also now go quiet as usual as we listen to the takeoff of this NEO. A lovely smooth takeoff. Now if you're at Hamburg airport, a little ahead of when you need to fly, there's a lovely place to sit, have a coffee or a beer and watch aircraft depart alongside runway 33. That place is called Coffee to Fly. It's a little cafeteria, has lots of seating both inside and outside, and has brilliant views of runway 33. This is an example of just how close you get to the action. We were soon in the cruise and it really was a beautiful day for flying. Service once again is pretty much all paid for. You can buy snacks, drinks, coffees, that sort of thing on board. The staff were very friendly, helpful, and actually were very efficient, to be fair. The cabin's a fairly standard configuration in a 3-3. The further forward you go, there is some business class seats where the middle seat is left free, but not very many of those, and the seats just behind those are extra legroom seats. Now, I chose not to use it, but you do also get access to Wi-Fi on board, and there's a number of different price plans that range from anything from a couple of euros right the way through to nearly €8 for the whole flight. As I say, I didn't partake this time, but just thought I'd share, just so that you knew for your flights in the future. Soon we were making the familiar turns over the top of the City of London as we made our approach into London Heathrow. Now interestingly, I rarely ever fly into London without doing a couple of circuits, but for us, we pretty much flew straight in. There was no turns or anything. We just kind of lined up with 27 left, and the rest is history. Anyways, here we are, making our final approach now into London Heathrow. If you're coming in on the southerly runway, you get the option to see Concorde. What a welcome back to Britain. Couldn't be more British really than Concorde. It's always a really welcome sight as you come back into London Heathrow. Another nice smooth landing as we pass Terminal 2 there in the background. Would I fly Eurowings again? A good question. My answer is probably. They are cheap and they get you from A to B generally fairly easily. However, you have to be really aware of the extra charges, much like any other low-cost carrier. This particular airline though seems to be very focused on policing bags, so just be wary of that if you choose to fly with Eurowings in the future. I have to say the one big fly in the ointment is their boarding processes, and having flown with these guys probably 5 or 6 times, literally 4 out of the 6 times the boarding process has been complete chaos. I don't know if I'm just really unlucky or if that's just how they do business, but either way it does kind of put me off. And here we arrive at the end of another adventure. Thanks so much for joining me. If you haven't already, do please subscribe and like my videos. And for those that already do, I really appreciate your support. I look forward to catching you on the next one. See you soon.
Please be careful while opening the overhead bins later.